Hi there, Carrie here. Um, I thought it might be helpful to share with you some information that I learned when I was in hypnosis school and doing a lot of neuroscience study. It really helped put everything in perspective because I know there are different ways of looking at progress in school and how you perceive yourself as progressing or not progressing. So let's try to share some concepts and see if it makes any more or less sense. I'm going to be pausing this because going to try to share some exhibits, um, try to share some documents with you that might put things in perspective a little bit. And this is mostly for fairly new students. When I look at school and progress, I think of it often in terms of theory, at the very beginning, and then sort of an entry level speed building, and then sort of advanced speed building, and then exit levels. Um, to kind of chunk it up into four parts. I've also realized that because when you're in theory, you're actually learning theory with your conscious analytical mind. It's the part that will drive you crazy later, the part that chatters all the time. But it's analyzing. It's trying to understand why do you do this finger, this finger, this finger, and this finger to make the word stop or start or go or anything. And to lay down the understanding of the theory of how to write words, not just whatever theory you have, but the theory of how to write words. It's trying to analyze it, to make sense of it, to understand it, to learn it. That's theory. Then when you get into beginning speed building, however your school is set up, there's no right or wrong, but for most of us, the next step after theory is speed building. Some schools do them both at the same time. I'm not talking about that right now. When you first start into low speeds, when I was in school, we started in 80. I understand now there are some schools that start in 40 words per minute, 60, 80 words per minute, whatever it is. From there up till about 120 words per minute, um, you're learning how to write fluidly at higher and higher speeds. And for most people, that's not a stalling out place because you're writing slow enough that your conscious mind still has time to analyze what you're writing. And basically, what you're asking it to do is to think faster and faster and faster as you're writing faster and faster and faster. From about 160 to 180, from scratch that, strike that from the record, from about 120 to about 160 or 180, somewhere in there. You're writing faster than your analytical mind can hang on to it. And that is why that chunk right in there is so hard for most people because you're literally breaking away from the routine that you've had all along of writing and allowing your conscious mind to analyze what you're writing. Some point in there, you've got to let it go. You've got to strive for automatic writing, for not analyzing what you're writing, to practice what you're having difficulty with, but when you're writing, to allow it to unfold, to allow it to basically to allow your subconscious, which is where all the strokes are recorded forever and ever, amen, to allow that part to come forth. And that is where your speed building will happen, along with in that last chunk, really pushing high speeds, even though you're not pushing high speeds for accuracy at those high speeds, you're pushing for higher speeds because your accuracy level and you're trying to hit a high frequency is they're in tandem, but they're not together. And as you push for a higher speed, your accuracy will increase on the lower end. Kind of blows my mind the way our minds work in general. So let me show you something that I found just absolutely fascinating. See if I can get this up for us. This is something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And it kind of blew my mind. It was talking about something totally unrelated to court reporting, but it kind of works with everything. And see there where it says the peak of Mount Stupid? And I thought, well, that can't be a scientific phrase, but it is. And for a lot of us that started in school, think back about it. You did not know what you were getting into. And I hesitate to say that most of us, if we knew what we were getting into, we might have chosen something else. Some of this can feel so insurmountable. But starting off over here on the left, where we've got competence going one way and we've got confidence going the other way. When we first start off, we were really confident that we're right at the dead end of competence because we have none. We're starting to learn, but we have all the confidence in the world that we know what we're doing, we know what we've gotten into, and we know this is going to be a piece of cake. We got it. We can do this. We can do anything. We're unstoppable. Until the moment when the reality sets in of how much work is going to have to be put into this to get the result that you want. And this particular little graph can follow you through every single speed, but I'm just looking at the whole court reporting school journey in general right now. We go from the peak of Mount Stupid, where we don't realize how ignorant we are about what's ahead of us. As the reality sets in, we wind up down in what is referred to as the valley of despair. And how many times have any of us working reporters been there? Yeah. Then it's a slow climb back up the slope of enlightenment, which is learning your skill, perfecting your craft, becoming faster and more accurate at the same time, all the way till you can get to a point. Look at this, the confidence level is the same finally, back to where you thought you were when you started, back to this plateau of sustainability, which means your skill level is at a place where it can sustain you, you can sustain it. I love this, how they call it guru over here at the bottom. You're the master of your craft. But look at that. Look at that. I mean, when we, find those moments in our journey when we are just so excited, so depressed, so working so hard for what seems like such small progress. And yet, when we finally make it, it's almost like childbirth. Excuse me, guys who don't understand this analogy, but it's like you forget the pain and suffering that came to getting where you are. And you may even make the mistake of minimizing how far you've come, calling it a fluke, or just not giving it the credit that it deserves, the credit that you deserve for having gone through that whole process. So let me stop this for a moment. And let's see if I'm going to stop sharing. If I can, I'm going to pause this for just a moment and pull up a different document. Surprise, it's not going to let me pull up another document, and it won't let me minimize my screen. Let me do it this way. Pull this one up. There we go. Back to Zoom. I'm not an aficionado on this stuff. Let's try share. There we go. I'll share this one with you. Different kind of a chart, same kind of concept, but looking at it in a different kind of a way. This is so what do they call it here? I think they call it momentum, which seems strange to me, but a pyramid of competence, I think is what I would call it. When we start off in school, we are in the biggest, hardest place, and they call that unconscious incompetence. What does that mean? It means literally you don't know what you don't know. And that's where that peak of Mount Stupid comes in because you think you know everything. I mean, how could you not? If you don't know what you don't know, then what you know must be that you know everything. We're down here at the bottom of your you're dealing with incompetence because you don't have the skill yet, and yet you're unconscious about where you actually are. You don't know what you don't know. You get in there and you work on your theory. You may come to speed building and come to a place where I would call conscious incompetence, meaning that, yeah, you have an element of incompetence in that you are not the master of your skill yet. So you are incompetent at it, but you're conscious of the fact that you're incompetent. You know that you're not there yet, but you still don't really know what's ahead of you. This is where I think faith comes in. You know, faith is believing in the thing that you have no evidence of. And for a lot of us, it's hanging on to the why you started the journey to keep you going until you can accomplish what you want to. Stepping up a little bit when you're getting into those higher speed building episodes, you are now conscious competence. You have gained a level of competence in your skill level. But, and I think of this as conscious competence, meaning that I've really got to work hard at being competent. I know what I've got to do. I know how hard it is. I know what level of effort I've got to put into it on what frequency to maintain it or to increase it. But so I have a conscious awareness, but I do have a level of competence. Here's what I love up at the top. I notice it's the tiniest part of the pyramid where you have unconscious competence. Basically, it's you're competent at what you're doing, so much so that you can be unconscious about the effort that you put into what you're doing. When I look at this, I think of riding on automatic pilot, and um, and these two, I think, when I'm a working reporter, I feel myself fluctuating between these two steps every single day, where it's hard and I've got to really focus on it, and then there's those moments where I can just let go and feel into the flow and allow the words to come through my ears to be processed through my body, out my fingers in an automatic step without me having to be consciously engaged in the effort. That's where we all want to be. And for those of you out there, there is a way to practice to get better at it. I honestly can say I can put myself there more often than I could a year ago, but I'm consciously practicing it every single day. If anybody wants to get in on that, let me know. I'm happy to share what I have found that works. I hope some of this has been helpful. It is meant only to let you know that the journey that you're on is yours and it's personal to you. But on the other hand, it's the same journey that all of us have to go through. And whether it's court reporting or any other skill that we want to master, there are those steps. There's that moment you think you know everything, and then you dive into the valley of despair. There are just those chunks of working out that I don't know what I don't know. Now I do know how much is ahead of me, and recommitting every step of the way to recommit to your new level of the knowledge of the journey ahead of you. Um, what I would say after 46 years of reporting and 5 really hard years in school, don't give up on you. Don't give up on you. And don't let yourself fall into believing what your brain tells you, because it will come up with some pretty nasty stuff if you don't get on top of it. Why do you think who do you think you are? What makes you think you can do this? There's something wrong with you. You're not as good as other people. All that crap. You've got to get rid of that negative voice in your head. That's one of the things I'm really good at. So get a hold of me if that's what's bugging you. And if always, as always, if I have enough people with a particular subject that's bothering them, we'll do a Zoom on it and see as a collective group how many people we can get past that particular hurdle. Okay, you guys have a great day. It's nice to be back, and I will talk to you soon.